Welcome to Formed, where each week we navigate a relevant topic or question through honest conversations. We are three pastors with three different backgrounds on staff together at Irving Bible Church in Irving, Texas. We believe we are constantly being formed in the way of Jesus for the sake of the world, and we hope this podcast helps with that. So let's jump into this week's episode of Formed. Welcome back to another week of Formed. This is episode 9.
9.
So close.
Amazing.
So close to 10.
Almost to 10.
Guys, thank you so much for listening, watching to the show. It's been really cool to talk to some of you guys here at the church, or somebody that's reached out saying this is part of your Thursday routine, watching on YouTube or listening in your car or exercising or with your family and all of that. So thank you for that. We're also going to do something coming up, a mailbag episode. So we're going to post in the podcast description on audio and on YouTube, we're going to post a Google form. It's going to be really simple. If there's a question or a topic you want us to touch on or talk about or answer, leave a question there. We're going to gather some of the questions and then have an episode on that. And it can be theological, it can be funny, it can be anything that you would want answered by us three. So
Ask us anything.
Mm-hmm.
all right, so I got to start off with Taylor Swift. Because yesterday, Barry wore a Taylor Swift band tee to work, and it threw me off.
Em was very proud of it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Very proud.
Yeah.
Unapologetic
Yes,
Swiftie right here.
unapologetic, yeah.
Unapologetic.
But so I would say half of your family went to Taylor Swift.
well, not
concert?
quite that much, but yeah, actually, no, now that you say it.
Well, I
So
want
my
to.
son went with his girlfriend, and then Kim took our daughter. So, yeah.
Well, I want to paint a picture, a hypothetical, because I was just talking to your other son, Will, before this, and I was like, "Hey, Will, did your dad get to go?" And he was like, "No," but he looked up tickets and found standing room only tickets, but he didn't want to go by himself. And I just want us all to think about Barry as standing room only Taylor Swift.
I
concert.
got really close. I got really close
I
to
feel like
pulling
you
the
should have
trigger.
done it.
Yeah.
What I would have,
Yeah.
how much money I would have paid.
Introvert Barry would
It's not
actually
his-
love to go to a concert
Yeah,
by
by
himself.
himself.
This was a great concert. It wouldn't have troubled me at all. But
And
yeah.
he's already been to one. This wouldn't be his first Taylor Swift
Yes,
concert.
I took our daughter in October of 2018. It was right after her birthday, and that was the birthday present. And I had kind of come up with the idea, so I got to be the parent to go along, and I was just blown away by
Yeah.
the performance. And so, yeah, I'm unapologetic in my
I would just love to,
appreciation of.
if like an IBCer was at the concert and they look over.
There's Pastor Barry.
It's like, is that Pastor Barry by himself?
Standing all by himself,
Standing by himself, just
singing
jamming
along
out.
to every word.
Yeah. Oh man, that's good. She seems like an awesome concert.
Yeah.
44 songs.
Yeah.
It's
Unbelievable.
is there anybody
Yeah.
more
Hours.
popular?
That was part of the thing that blew me away. Is just the stamina it
Yeah.
takes to pull
Yeah.
off this show, and then to think about she does it night after night. So it's pretty crazy.
It's impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. It's Easter week.
it is.
It's just like some people call it the Super Bowl of the church world.
Mm-hmm.
But this is obviously a huge week. The Easter story. We talk about the Easter story every year around this time. And today I was like, all right, we got to talk about Easter, but let's try to hit it from some different angles.
Maybe they should call the Super Bowl the Easter of the NFL.
We could do that.
I kind of like that.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
Yeah.
let's change.
Yeah.
Let's change the narrative.
It
We'll
makes,
talk to the NFL.
It makes their deal bigger than ours, and we just
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
The resurrection
Our deal is definitely bigger.
So it's kind of a big deal.
All right, Super Bowl is the Easter.
I don't know that works.
Be on the next He Gets Us campaign. So, okay, I'm going to ask a couple questions, and let's go from here with the Easter story. So let's start with this. What would you say is part of the Easter story that is undervalued?
Well, I think we talk a lot about Good Friday, the day that Jesus is crucified, and we talk obviously a lot about Easter, but there's this day in between that, at least in the Protestant church, evangelical church, we don't really talk about. So it's often called Holy Saturday, Silent Saturday, the Easter Vigil. And this is this day when the disciples are in grief and despair. They're confused. They're afraid. They're hiding. They've just watched their rabbi, their teacher, be executed in the most vicious, cruel way. And so confusion, chaos, all of that is going on. This is the darkest moment in human history, and yet God is at work. And it's such a reminder to me, in the past years, as I've thought more about, especially on that Saturday, what was going through the minds of the disciples and what was actually happening during those events. It's just a reminder to me that even in my darkest moments, I can wait on God and I can trust on God because he is at work. And the encouragement to me, and this is what I love about Scripture, is it doesn't tell us that the disciples, they waited in faith and in hope. They actually didn't. They were afraid. They were confused. They were in despair. Peter goes back to fishing. And so that's such an encouragement to me, because oftentimes in my darkest moments, I don't wait in faith. I am afraid. I am confused. I am overwhelmed. And yet God is still working. It's not based on my performance. And so that's the day that I think throughout Holy Week that we don't really recognize and talk a lot about, and yet it's still impactful to us today.
I love that. I mean, just the reality that all of Jesus' earliest followers lost their faith.
Yeah, right.
On that Saturday, right? And that the resurrection restores their faith, right? But they've all given up hope.
Right.
That there's no coming back from this, and there's something about that reality, I think, that's really meaningful, very comforting for those of us who struggle to believe,
Right.
and for our friends who maybe have wandered away or walked away from their faith. They're in good company. Right?
Yeah.
So did Jesus' earliest disciples. But the encounter with the resurrected Christ, as you were talking, I was just thinking about Martin Luther has this wonderful little Latin phrase, Deus absconditus sub contrario, right? Deus, God.
No, we're here now.
Yeah,
We're full Dr. Jones.
Full Dr. Jones mode.
Love it.
Deus absconditus, to abscond, hidden, right? Deus absconditus, God hidden, sub, under, contrario, the opposite. God hidden under the opposite. And this is the story of Holy Saturday, right? That when at this moment that things look as dark as they could possibly be, right? That this time of utter despair, when it seems like God is most absent, that he has absconded,
Yeah.
that he is at work accomplishing his redemptive purpose. I love that. For me, I thought about this idea that the early church talked a lot about, that I think we've kind of lost in some ways about Easter. Like, we tend to focus on the resurrection and as that means that we'll have eternal life. The cross actually worked, and that's sort of the exclamation point at the end of the story. But the early church talked about Easter as, they would talk about the 8th day of creation or the first day of new creation, right? And so this idea that when Christ is raised, new creation has begun. The great hope of the Christian faith is not just a hope for heaven when we die. It actually is for this whole world, this God-made, sin-scarred world to be redeemed, restored, remade, new creation. And that new creation begins in the garden.
Yeah.
Right, with the resurrection of Jesus. And so there's just something really powerful and beautiful, I think, about that, the way the early church talked about the 8th day of creation, the first day of new creation.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome. I was thinking of what Sissy was saying a while ago about the disciples before the resurrection. When I was preaching to the youth last weekend, the youth had a retreat here at our church. I kind of brought up that I was like, Are you living like a pre-resurrection disciple or a post-resurrection disciple? And we live in a post-resurrection world, but sometimes we live like that pre-resurrection of the disciples, and seeing how that flipped for them, and they lived radically.
Gave their lives.
Yeah, they gave their lives. Anyway, I was thinking of that when you said it. But okay, let's look at this. Part of the Easter story, the average person wouldn't know.
I'm giving this over to Dr. Jones.
Well, I say the casuals.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
when you suggested that question, I started thinking about what are some of those little details or technical issues that you might easily miss or read past. And there's a couple of interesting ones that sort of came to my mind that just illustrate to me that the gospel writers are brilliant storytellers, and they have given us these accounts in ways that are just really powerful. So one of them is in John chapter 21, this post-resurrection appearance of Jesus, this beautiful scene of Jesus meeting Peter on the beach, right? Peter's gone back to the Sea of Galilee, gone back to fishing, and they have had this night where they're on the lake all night. They've caught nothing. It actually recreates the moment of Jesus calling of his disciples when he's then there on the beach and tells them to cast the nets on the other side. They have this miraculous catch. And so Jesus, in this post-resurrection scene, recreates the moment of their calling. But what happens then is Peter realizes it's the Lord, and he just jumps out of the boat and starts swimming because he recognizes it's Jesus and he wants to be with him, and he swims to the shore. And John, in telling this story, says that when they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. And again, the average reader sort of just reads past that, Jesus making breakfast on the beach. But John uses a very sort of peculiar word here to talk about this fire of burning charcoal. It's not just the sort of standard word for fire. It's a very specific word, charcoal fire. And the only other place that we see reference to this charcoal fire is in the same story in John's Gospel in chapter 18, that Peter, on the night in which Jesus was arrested, and he's been taken to his trial, Peter stands warming himself in front of, John says, a charcoal fire. Right? So the storyteller here has captured this same language to help us recognize that when Peter emerges soaking wet from swimming to the shore, he's immediately met with this familiar smell, right, that takes him right back to this place of shame, his betrayal of Jesus on the night he was arrested, denying that he even knew the man. So for Peter, shame has a smell, and it smells like burning charcoal. And he's confronted with it. And I have to just think he smells it, and it just stops him in his tracks. And then Jesus just says to him, come and have breakfast, right? This invitation to this intimate connection around a meal, shared fellowship. And so that's one of those just tiny little details, but it's brilliant storytelling.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, I think we just wrap up the whole show now. I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
So the other one that's sort of an interesting little technical detail is actually the end of Mark's gospel, because we actually have some scholarly questions about where the story ends.
Right.
So the story ends in verse, the numbers just keep getting smaller and smaller, right? I think that's verse 8. That most of our oldest, most reliable ancient manuscripts, right, the earliest and the most reliable manuscripts end at verse 8. And then we have some other later manuscripts that actually have this longer ending added on. And the longer ending includes Jesus' appearances to others, and it includes some really familiar details from the other gospel stories. But it seems like what's happened is that somebody later came along and was like, well, that can't be the ending of the story. And we know the ending of the story from the other gospels, so we're just going to kind of add on this extra bit at the end because we want people to know how the story ends. Some have suggested that maybe that's because the original ending to Mark's gospel was lost, and so early scribes would sort of add on this section to sort of finish out the story. But I think there's a really good possibility. I think it entirely likely that the short ending of Mark's gospel is the original ending. It's how Mark wrote the story. And the thing is that the story ends very abruptly because the women have gone to the tomb. The stone's been rolled away. They don't see Jesus. And then they encounter this messenger who says, he's not here, he's risen. And the very end then says, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. And they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. End of story.
Yeah.
Wait, what? They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. But it's actually, it seems to be a story in search of an ending. Oh. And Mark is writing this. We sometimes think about the Gospels as like these just newspaper accounts, like this happened, this happened, this happened. But the storytellers are brilliant at telling a story in a way that's for a particular audience, intended to evoke a particular response. So Mark is writing, we think, to the early church in Rome that is suffering persecution, that is living in fear. And the whole thing is written in a way to say Jesus is the suffering servant who stands in solidarity with you in your suffering. He knows what it is that you're going through. But Mark, through the whole time he's told the story of Jesus, has had Jesus say to people after he's done a miracle, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody. Then you get to the end of the story, and it says, now, go tell.
Yeah.
And they run away because they are afraid. And it, I think, is intended to evoke this response, this mic drop moment for the church in Rome to say, what are you going to do with the story? Right? They were already followers of Jesus. They already knew the story was Jesus is alive, that he's resurrected. But this sort of mic drop ending of the story is very much so what are you going to do with the message of Jesus? What are you going to do in your time of fear and confusion? It's a story in search of an ending for the people that are hearing it for the very first time. And I think probably most people commonly don't actually recognize what's happening there at the end of Mark's gospel. And this is actually, I think, really brilliant storytelling.
Yeah, it feels like it's unfinished, but actually it's how are you now going to live this out, right? That's great, yeah.
I love that you went to like these. One, that was this incredible Dr. Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Like
He's got more of that.
that was a stretch there of just like peak Dr. Jones. So that was great though.
We got Latin, we
Yeah.
got text criticism, and we got little Greek nuances.
The charcoal fire thing.
Word.
I've never heard of that. So
yeah.
I was all about that.
Yeah.
It's like I forgot we were on the show. I was like, I'm not in class right now. Like I'm all here for this. But okay, so let me ask you this. Person in the story that is underrated.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on this a little bit in the discussion of the ending of Mark, but I think the people, more than one person, that is often not talked about are the women.
Yes.
So they're the last at the cross. The disciples have fled. They've deserted Jesus, and they're still there. They're watching their rabbi die in this cruel way. And then they're the first at the tomb. So Mary Magdalene and others, Salome and others, go to the tomb to anoint the body of Jesus. They get there, and they meet the angel, and the angel says, he is not here, he is risen. Come see where he lay, and go now and quickly tell the disciples. And so what's so shocking about this, it's so countercultural. This is the most important event that has taken place in all of human history, most significant event, and God, the eyewitnesses to that event are women. This is who God calls to not just be eyewitnesses, but then, and Barry, you've often, like, you were one of the first people that taught me about this, that the women were the apostles to the apostles, right? The sent ones to the sent ones. And in this culture, this is incredibly shocking. Women are worthless. Their testimony is not credible. It would not stand up in a court of law. And yet God values women so much that he says, you're the ones that are going to carry the message of the greatest event in all of human history, the resurrection of the Son of God. And I just think we often miss that in telling the Easter story.
Yeah. Last at the cross.
Yep. First at the tomb.
And we ought to all find strength and inspiration by their example in that regard. They are commissioned, the apostles to the apostles. I love that. I was hoping that's what you were going to say because that's definitely what I was thinking about with response to this question. I did have another one that sort of came to my mind, and it's not so much Easter as in this whole passion narrative. But I love the fact that Nicodemus shows up, right? It's a fascinating little detail. So if you remember in John's gospel, Nicodemus is this leader of He's a member of the Sanhedrin. He's a Pharisee, right? He is like deeply entrenched in the religious establishment, and the religious establishment has been very anti-Jesus. But Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night and says, okay, there's something going on here, and I need you to help me figure it out. But he comes to Jesus at night because his status is on the line if he's seen associating with Jesus in this way. And so it's this very clandestine, in secrecy, that he comes to Jesus to ask, like, what's going on? Who are you? And then we don't see Nicodemus again the rest of the story, and the only other time that he pops up is after Jesus has died, and Joseph of Arimathea has said, I'll take his body, I'll bury him. And Nicodemus shows up with Joseph, and they prepare his body for burial, and they lay him. Nicodemus is the one who is now tenderly caring for the lifeless body of Jesus, where at the beginning he is coming completely in secret. I don't want anybody to know I have any association with this man. By the end of the story, it's like he's saying, I love him, and I don't care who knows it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just this wonderful little reappearance of a relatively minor character. But again, I find it just really powerfully inspiring because, like, Jesus has died a condemned criminal, and Nicodemus is risking his status by saying, I want to be one of the ones who helps prepare his body for burial.
Yeah, and it's not even just his status. It's also, in this culture, his standing in the community.
Yes,
Because
right, yeah.
this is everything.
Yes.
Like, he's risking everything, social, his what he does for his work, all of that, his reputation. And he's willing to put him and Joseph come, and it says Joseph was waiting for the kingdom, and they come boldly. And they're basically saying, we stand with this man that you have now condemned as a criminal. That's powerful.
This phrase that we're emphasizing this Easter season here at IBC is never the same.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite. Even just our team looking at branding stuff, we have some T-shirts coming out with it says "Never the Same" on it, and how you even the phrase "If the tomb is empty, things are never the same." How has your life reflected that, and how should our lives? Why are things never the same if the tomb is empty?
I mean, the resurrection really does change everything because Jesus died for our sins, bearing, I think about that, Jesus bore the crushing weight of my sin and shame that I cannot bear, that I have often found myself stuck in my sin and stuck in my shame and unable to, overwhelmed by the weight of it, and Jesus bore that on my behalf. My sins are forgiven, and that means I now come with joyful confidence because I have this relationship with God, reconciled to God and reconciled to one another. That the death of Jesus not only reconciled me to God the Father, but also allows me now to be in relationship with others, and because of that, and then that's the death of Jesus, but then he doesn't just stay dead, he rises from the dead, proving to us that he's victorious over death and sin and every evil. And if that's true, then I worship a risen Savior. Paul writes that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is at work in us. Like, just thinking about that, the power that raised Jesus from the dead is at work in me by the power of the Spirit. And that's the ability that we have, the opportunity that we have, the invitation that we have to live in a way where it's not just life for eternity, but it's life right now. It's abundance of life right now. It's joy and satisfaction and freedom in how we live today, and then the hope for tomorrow. And before I met Jesus, I didn't have any of that. But there's that song I think about, and we probably sing, or my old church, we'd sing it almost every Easter, "Because He Lives," right? And it's so true. And I still cry when I hear the words of that song, because He lives, I live as well. So for me, yeah, the resurrection changes everything.
So I feel like I have a really unique personal connection with Holy Week because 24 years ago during Holy Week was when I lost my dad. And so this was one of the just most painful, darkest experiences of my life. And it fell during Holy Week. We buried my dad on Good Friday. And so every year, it's been 24 years, been nearly half my lifetime ago now. I always go back to that experience. And honestly, the time leading up to my dad's passing, as he was battling cancer and it became pretty apparent that it was terminal, it was a real crisis of faith time for me. And I just found myself really struggling with the idea of heaven and eternal life, and just couldn't wrap my mind around all that. But it was really the idea of the resurrection of Jesus and this idea of new creation, right? That began at Easter and that is our great hope. That there is coming a day when everything wrong with this world is made right, everything broken with this world is made whole, everything marred in this world is made beautiful. Those words are probably the ones that the people of our church have heard me say more than anything else over the course of these years, because those are the words that brought me hope and perspective in this darkest time of my life. And it's because of the resurrection of Jesus, the beginning of new creation, that we have the hope of creation made new, that there's coming a day when this thing that began on Easter Sunday will pervade the entirety of this sin-scarred world. And so, because of the resurrection of Jesus, even though Holy Week for me has a personal connection to grief and loss, sadness, it also just reminds me of the great hope that we have, because if the tomb is empty, then it's true that the world is never the same, that I'm never the same, that nothing is ever the same.
Where, O death, is your sting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Death, thou shalt die.
All right. Can we do some rapid fire Easter questions?
Let's do.
At the end, I got to get Sissy talking about peeps at the end.
I knew you were going to say that.
But all right, Easter tradition that you would recommend.
So I grew up with we had a lot of Indian traditions in terms of foods that we ate and things throughout Holy Week, but we didn't have any other traditions except so Friday is very much a somber day. So Good Friday is very much somber. You don't eat meat. And then Sunday is this day of incredible celebration. And so it's lots of family and friends over and all sorts of foods. I mean, it's just everything that you can imagine. You're feasting as we celebrate.
Where to go.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And they still do it. They're still doing it this year. Yeah. You're celebrating the resurrection. So that's maybe the only tradition that I could think of that I've had.
So feast out on Sunday.
Easter
out,
Sunday
for sure.
is like
Yeah, it is the feast
church
day of
and
all
then feast days. Yeah.
So it's not a tradition that there's a couple that come to my mind. One's it's a personal one, but one that I've participated in and have loved it, but it's not like an annual tradition for me. But participating in a Passover Seder and connecting that to the experience of Christ's death and resurrection. And so, right, because it's in the context of the Passover Seder that Jesus has his last meal with his disciples. And so the connections are just beautiful and profound. And the first time I ever participated in a Seder, I was asked to lead it, right? So it was actually some people from IBC and people in the band, and they wanted to do like a family Passover Seder.
Yeah.
So like, you do it. And I'm
Right.
like, I
I've
don't
never
know
done
anything
it.
about
Yeah.
this. And so I had to research it and learn all about it and learn some of the liturgy of it. And I probably did it wrong in so many ways.
Yeah.
But it was this incredible evening that we had together, rehearsing the story, sharing a meal. I mean, it was really, really powerful. And so then actually having then the opportunity to experience it from somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And recognize, I didn't miss it completely.
bad, yeah.
But also to be able to sort of participate in that. So I would just say that's a cool thing that somebody can experience that may not be every year at Easter. So I have a little thing that I do. It's a personal thing I've shared with my kids in the past, but it's something I try to do every year, and that is I actually go back and reread the death and resurrection of Aslan from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And obviously, Lewis has written that story to parallel the story of Jesus, but it's beautiful, and it's powerful, and it moves me every time. And as a preacher, we come back to the same texts of the resurrection year after year after year, and I'm always trying to stay connected emotionally to these texts, to still feel the passion of the story, right? To still allow it to move me. But there's something about connecting with this other way of telling the same story that Lewis does in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe that really does just have an emotional impact on me. And so I go back and read it at Easter.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love both of those. I've never participated in a Seder.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
You gotta find a spot
Yeah,
to do it.
I
Try
do.
it out. It's
Yeah.
pretty-
Say, where
it's pretty
would
cool.
you do that at?
Well, we can do it right here
Yeah.
in the studio. I got some experience now. No,
come-
I'm not doing it again.
It's like a biblical D&D campaign. I don't know how many people in our audience knows what D&D is, but okay, Easter Bunny. Well, one, I was going to say coloring eggs a little bit ago, but that doesn't hold a candle to you. I was like,
Oh no!
Good Friday's a-
Yeah,
a
coloring
somber
eggs is-
day.
Eggs is
and-
great, and you got littles. You better
Yeah,
be
you should
coloring
color
eggs.
Yeah,
So
coloring eggs.
yeah,
Okay, Easter Bunny, yay or nay? Are we in or out?
I'm out.
oh come on, you people.
I did not grow up with the
come
Easter Bunny,
on.
and so it's,
It's
like
so creepy.
up there with like the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus for me.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Oh golly. Yeah,
Barry
no,
apparently is a
we're
fan
all
of the Easter
about
Bunny.
we're all about Easter Bunny.
Wait, are you going to the mall to like get a picture?
Oh my goodness. So I was say before we started recording. So my mother lives with us. We're a 3-generation household, and yeah, I'll get an Easter basket from the Easter Bunny
great.
on Easter Sunday. So yeah, we're definitely Easter Bunny people.
Awesome. I love it.
Things you don't know. Yeah.
Okay, what about egg hunts? Yay or nay?
I think egg hunts are great. Like we have one every year at Easter Fest, and the kids love it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me of how did like that become associated with Easter? Like where did the bunny come from? I get spring.
Yeah.
That's the only association, but
Bunnies and eggs. And,
it's a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little
when you
weird.
start
It's all
thinking
weird.
about it.
Yeah.
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 And there's some like really creepy Easter Bunny outfits
Yes.
through the years. I'm like, okay, I don't
That's
know what we're
questionable.
doing here.
Right.
But Easter egg hunts, do you want fake eggs with candy in them or real eggs?
Fake eggs with candy. Some people put trinkets in it, and that's a whole thing.
Yeah. Fake eggs with candy.
Candy.
For sure.
Yeah.
On Easter, do you dress up or no?
So the church I grew up in, we would dress up. I
Yeah.
mean, it was just Christmas and Easter. You were wearing your outfits. Here we don't do that as much, and so I think it depends. What setting you're in.
Yeah, we at the church I grew up in, we use it as a missional opportunity every year. So we call it. We had this thing called "Forget the Frock," and so we actually partnered with a bunch of mission organizations. And for Easter, you would buy a T-shirt from that organization. You would wear it. You would take the money that you would go and spend
Spend an
on a
outf-
new outfit, spend it on a T-shirt, wear the T-shirt on Easter. So then it's like
You're supporting that
the
organization.
only issue with it though is people who visit your church and then they stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a visitor.
Right.
And they're
You
like
don't have a shirt.
suit and tie and wearing our T-shirts. And it's like, got you.
Yeah.
But I always thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And anyway. Okay. Let's talk about some Easter candy.
Well, I've already told you what my
Sissy,
favorite
just
is,
tell us,
and I'm
just-
standing
my.
strong.
Why do you like
Because
Peeps?
you don't eat Peeps any other time of year. How can you not like marshmallows? And it's not like I eat the whole thing, but one Peep 2 Peeps. Actually, probably about 3.
Do you have a favorite flavor of Peeps?
Just the original. I don't do the whole like. You told me about the different flavors. I was like, I didn't even know that flavor existed.
I hate Peeps.
Yeah, I'm a.
Why
I'm a
do you
no
hate them
on
so
Peeps.
much?
They're just horrible. The
don't-
taste with I like marshmallows, but like marshmallows go on s'mores. Like
You wouldn't just eat a marshmallow. by
I'm not really,
itself.
but I'm not trying to like put a peep on a
Or
s'more.
if I want a marshmallow, I'll eat just a marshmallow, not a marshmallow covered with yellow
Yeah.
goop. And yeah,
See, I kind of like the yellow goop.
yeah.
It's gross.
It's texture.
Okay, I have a BuzzFeed quiz. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to equal out to, but I'm going to ask. We're gonna do this with Barry. I'm going to ask yuck or yum on some Easter candy, and we'll fly through these.
Okay.
Cadbury cream eggs.
Yuck. Disgusting.
Do you like them?
Yuck.
Oh,
All right. What about the chocolate bunnies that are hollow on the inside?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between. It's a little deceiving.
Usually it's cheap milk chocolate
Right.
is the thing. So
Yes.
yeah.
Bougie Berry. cheap milk chocolate. What about the solid chocolate bunnies?
Oh, I think I was thinking that was the same thing you just asked about.
So
Cheap
you're
milk
indifferent on
chocolate.
those.
Yeah.
Peeps, you hate them.
Yes.
Great. They're from Satan.
Yum.
Cottontails.
I have no idea
Yeah,
what
what
that
is that?
It's like cotton candy.
Oh. Well,
Do you like
can't
cotton
go wrong
candy?
with cotton candy.
I like cotton candy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yum.
Awesome.
If you like cotton candy, how can you not like Peeps?
Oh.
It's the
What
same
did you just
category.
compare
Same
Peeps
category.
to cotton candy? What is going on? Okay, peanut butter eggs. The Reese's peanut butter eggs.
I like
Yum.
those. Yeah.
Yes,
For
those
sure.
are awesome.
Because I love a Reese's peanut butter cup anyway, but
Yeah.
then the Easter ones, there's like a different chocolate to peanut butter ratio
Yeah.
that maybe not all year round, but boy, at Easter.
For
is
Easter,
really nice.
you could do some more peanut butter.
The Cadbury mini eggs.
I'm not sure if I ever had one.
That sounds too much like the
Yeah.
Cadbury,
Yeah.
not
Probably the
mini.
same thing, yeah.
Sour gummy bunnies.
I don't exactly know that I've had, but I
like
love sour
Yeah.
candy. So
Oh, okay. That's great. Cookies and cream eggs.
thanks.
You don't like cookies and cream. Marshmallow eggs.
It's kind of like a Peep.
This one has chocolate on it, though.
No
Chocolate covered
thanks.
peeps.
I think that might be all right. Yeah.
What about Starburst jelly beans?
I like jelly beans.
I'm all
I'm,
for
Yeah.
this.
and yeah,
Except
Starburst
licorice,
ones.
but
Yeah.
Except licorice. Okay, Tootsie Roll eggs. I've never had
I don't
these
think
before.
I've had a
Yeah.
Tootsie Roll egg. I like Tootsie Rolls. I don't like the Tootsie Roll lollipops. So I don't know what this is more like just the chocolate or if it's got the candy on the outside.
What about the Kinder Joy eggs?
Never had one.
I've had one and I like them.
You like them?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Oh, here you go. This is all Barry right here. Sweet tarts. The
Yes.
chicks, ducks,
Yes.
and bunnies.
Yum.
Yes.
Yum.
Those are great.
I
If I
love 'em.
find those,
I love them.
I don't even know how. What's the Lint chocolate carrots?
Well, I like Lindt chocolate, but I've never had the carrots.
Yay or nay?
Talk about bougie chocolate. I didn't even know
Lindt.
Lindt chocolate was a. So.
Yeah.
Lindt chocolate is.
Is it yuck for you or yum?
That probably.
I think
it's
you
probably
like
good.
it. Yeah.
Okay. We're almost at the end here. Caramel Ferrero Rocher eggs. Probably.
I have no idea, but it's got caramel inside of chocolate.
Is
I'm
that your?
thinking
You like
that's yum.
caramel?
Yeah.
First of all, I
Crunch.
say caramel, but
Crunch eggs.
I've never had that.
I haven't had it either.
Those are
but,
great. Do you like Crunch
I
bars?
I
Or
like Crunch bars. Yeah.
I haven't had one of those since I was like
Yeah, it's been a while.
Junior Mint eggs.
No.
I like Junior Mint, so
Do
it's
you?
got to
Junior
be.
Mints?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Last one, Almond Joy eggs.
I say nay.
Yeah.
All right, so this quiz will tell you how old you are.
Oh.
This is since Barry answered most of them. This is
Yes.
for Barry.
Yeah. Let's see how.
Barry is 48 years old.
Got pretty close.
It's close.
Got pretty close.
Shout out to BuzzFeed. They know all the answers except for love answers.
That's right.
Okay, that's it. Guys, happy Easter. I mean,
Happy
this
Easter.
Happy
this
Easter.
week we are journeying with Jesus to the cross and the beautiful Super Bowl Sunday of
right.
the church and the Easter of the NFL world of Easter. So
First day of new creation.
yes. So all right, we'll be back next week. Thanks for watching and listening, and happy Easter.